Hi everyone, Tony Tonkin here from Child Protection Party. Glad that you could be with me for our normal Sunday night feed. So I'd really like today to be an opportunity whereby we can have a conversation about what's happening in your lives and whether or not we can assist you. A couple of things I want to point out to start with. Number one is we held on Wednesday night last week a open session for people to come and talk about issues relating to child protection and other issues if they had them that they'd like to come along, and we had a fabulous meeting. So Wednesday night, every Wednesday night now, we're at 7:30 I think South Australian time, we're catching up to have a conversation with you about things that are of interest to you. It was a fantastic group. It was the first time we've ever attempted it, and it worked out pretty well. So it's an open group, so if you wish to join, there will be a Facebook link on Facebook that you'll be able to connect to that will invite you to the session. So if you wish to become a part of that, please do. And my feed seems to have, I don't know whether it's stopped or not, but we'll wait and see. But so if you're having any trouble with anybody there, could just let me know. I see Beck's there. Good to see you, Rebecca. And we'd like you to have a conversation with us. Now, there's a few things that are of concern to me at the moment. The title of this is COVID Lockdown and Kids, and and Rebecca's missed the meeting, but you're welcome to come along, 7 p.m, I guess, whatever, 7:30 South Australian time. So if you wish to come along to that meeting next time, then that's fine. I'd also like to be able to make a few comments about stuff that's been happening around Australia at the moment, and that's in relation to COVID and the lockdowns and how that's impacting everybody. And we would be really interested in meeting up with you to have a conversation with us about your experiences around the lockdown and what's that been like for you as well. So if you wish to get involved with us and have that conversation, I'll just notice it's going through to YouTube and it's going through to Twitch, this thing as well. So if you're not getting it on Facebook, then you can switch to YouTube, and the Child Protection Party YouTube channel is being fed there as well. But the few things about that I really need to mention. Number one is that we've had a number of people contact us now, thank goodness, in relation to our interviews that we're organising. Now, the purpose of these interviews is to have a conversation with you about what's happening to you in relation to child protection. And we had a fabulous interview the other day that highlighted a whole host of issues that we as a party have to confront. And one of those primarily is the child being remaining with a carer who, where there's strong doubts or allegations around they themselves abusing children. And we're questioning, what does that mean to us? How do we go about, we know how we go about reporting it, but what do we do with that type of video where it's just so confronting by so many of the things that are happening to these kids? And how do we go about securing confidentiality so that we're, at the end of the day, not caught out amongst any of that. So the other issue, I guess, is I saw this video clip of a kid who was at the Freedom Rally the other day, and it concerned me because I was wondering why anybody would take their kid to this rally. What's happening that would mean that you need to think that it's important to have a kid there? Because this kid was sprayed with pepper spray and clearly distressed by what had happened, and the parents, why do parents put their kids at this sort of risk? Look, if you believe that this Freedom Rally is important to you, then fine, go along. But don't bring your kids, because as it turns out, there are a number of people who see this as an opportunity to express violent behaviour. And sometimes that behaviour flows over into those people who just want to be there to make their protest, which is fine. But if you're going to bring kids along, you're you're placing them in danger. It's as simple as that. As this couple were walking away with this kid, he was clearly distressed because they'd been pepper sprayed. They were talking to the media, and they were making some comment about the fact that, are you the mainstream media? And if you're the mainstream media, then I'm not going to have a conversation with you. Is basically what they were saying. And well, don't place your kid in a situation that causes her to be hurt, the media to be interested in it, and then you find yourself in the midst of all this garbage that's going on around you, and the kid at the end of the day is not only confronted by the issue, they're also identified on television. They become the focus. And I just think it's crazy stuff, seriously. I don't agree with people protesting at this particular point in time. I need to say that. I'm concerned about many, many things. And, I appreciate that it is people's rights to protest. I don't object to the notion around protesting. There's many things that I've attended over the years which have been about protests, particularly in terms of child protection issues. But I think at this particular point in time, if there's an order that says that we can't protest, then I think it's really helpful if we don't. And I can't see how many people are online. It seems like my feed here on my computer's died. So, but that's okay. We'll just continue on. I think that there are other ways that one can go about protesting. Look, for most of us in the child protection space, there's so much that we need to confront. And there's so much energy that needs to be put into correcting the wrongs that are done in our society in relation to kids generally. Now, if an adult, you want to go out and protest, and you know that at the end of the day there'll be a fine or that you'll be locked up, don't be with your kids if you believe that you're going to protest in a way that's going to put your kids at risk. If you're on your own or with your partner and your kid's there and you get locked up, then what happens to the kid? Or are you thinking that the kid will be your safety valve so that you won't be locked up if something happens to you? Is this what you're thinking? Well, that's just friggin' crazy thinking. I also heard today that someone had said that if you're issued a fine, do not pay it. Now, the person who said that, I respect them in many areas, but I think that's just a damn foolish thing to say. I would say to the person who suggested that you pay the fine, that particular person, you should say back to them, well, look, I shouldn't pay the fine. Okay, I agree with you because I agree with the issue, but I can't afford to wind up with a further fine. I can't afford to wind up being in court and then having to pay all the costs. Can you assure me that if you're going to take this issue further, that we're going to win so I don't have to pay the fine? The reality is no one can assure you of that. The chances are that if you broke the law, you will be charged. Those charges will go to court. You will have to pay that fine, or you might have the fine increased. Plus, because you've taken it to court, you might have to pay court costs. I just think that that's a bizarre notion, and that we should draw a line when it comes to people telling us that and I guess one of the issues for me is that some of the people saying these ludicrous things are respected in the community. They're respected by others, and to some extent they're respected by me as well. There's a number of people within the child protection space whom I think are fabulous, but they have ideas that I don't always agree with, right? We're trying to work through the coronavirus pandemic right at the moment. It's important that we find ways to do that are not going to further harm people. So if Joe Bloggs finds themselves having to pay a fine, which they can't afford, and that has a detrimental effect in terms of the food they're able to provide, maybe an income that they need to provide, whatever. But if it adds stress to a household that may already be stressed, I don't see how that is helpful for kids. I just don't. At the end of the day, often the children are, I'm trying to think of the word. They become unwanted accomplices, if you like, because they're caught up in what the parents are doing. And I just find that sometimes there are, Rebecca says 11 people online. Thanks, Rebecca. And, I don't know where these people stand. I get concerned about the sovereign citizen stuff because I cannot, and if someone wants to have a discussion with me about this, please do. I'm happy to get online with you. I've said to lots of people, if you want to come on and have a chat about some of the issues that I talk about, I'm more than happy to do that. I just don't understand the logic behind the notions around sovereign citizenship, that somehow within the Constitution it says that we have all these rights and that the rights are taken away from us because of the legislation that's passed, but these other rights which are in the Constitution are more important than those that are laid out by legislation. I can agree that we don't need to agree with a lot of the laws, but if we wish to change those laws, we need to be able to have people in Parliament who can do so. I've heard people say, and I heard somebody say not long ago, that if we, that all politicians should be locked up, that we should do a citizen arrest, go and arrest these people. Now, I've watched some videos on YouTube where people have tried to do that. They themselves have wound up being locked up, not just for short periods of time, but for a relatively long period of time, sometimes weeks, because they just flagrantly disregard the system. Now, I know better than anybody that the system is flawed, but I don't think sticking our finger up at it is necessarily the most appropriate thing to do. I think there are ways by which we can mass together when possible, not at a time when then they are when there's a pandemic and there's certain restrictions, health restrictions that are around that we need to abide by. That is not the best time to do it. Not in this state, in South Australia, that'd be fine. There wouldn't be an issue around it. But in other states, in New South Wales and Victoria, of course, that would not be fine because they're trying to deal with a pandemic that's way out of hand. And I think the other issue for me, I think Ross has put something in here, whereas individuals and hence the community don't understand our words, our deeds become our thoughts and actions. Ditto for us. A parent, our actions become the role model for our children. Well, that's so true. Look, I'm not a fan of Brad Hazzard. I'm not a fan of, I'm certainly not a fan of Scott Morrison. I think he's the most deceitful person on this planet. And the sooner we find a way to get rid of him, the better. And I think we need to work through a political system in order to be able to do that. I am also saying that we need to be careful about the types of decisions that we make that are going to harm us and going to harm our children. And sometimes I just don't understand the logic that says that the laws, the things that prevent chaos in this country are the reasons why we should create chaos. At the moment, there's the pandemic in Australia is growing exponentially, mainly in Sydney, to a lesser extent in Victoria. We all know that. What the solution is, given that none of us have ever been here before, I don't think anybody really knows. There was a time when we were trying to work towards zero transmissions. Well, that clearly hasn't happened, except in some of these states which have clearly locked the borders. But it will creep in, even to places like South Australia. There will come a time where we'll just have to realise that we just have to deal with COVID and we'll have to get vaccinated. But there is this lurking minority that says that, our freedoms say that not getting vaccinated is what I don't agree with vaccinations because of these bizarre theories around Bill Gates instigating a vaccine that sends some sort of tracking device into your bloodstream that the craziest one was that they're magnetic, and somehow if you stick metal to you, it will stick. It's just bullshit, quite frankly. But there are people out there that believe those crazy theories. Now, to me, while we're trying to fight a system that is in itself detrimental to the well-being of our kids, I don't know how in our heads we can even have time to occupy some of these crazy conspiracy theories. There's too much work to be done to be able to put our energy into fighting a system that in many ways disadvantages kids right across the spectrum. And that's what we're fighting for, you know. Some of the people that are involved in the child protection system, heavily involved in the child protection system, agree with some of these crazy notions. And as they're agreeing and as they're using all their energies in these other areas, they're not able to focus on the areas that really do matter, which are these other areas in terms of working to change the system, supporting families, advocating for families. I had this woman I interviewed on Friday last week. There are so many issues involved in that. Now, it's a disturbing story. It's sad, but that issue alone has occupied most of our time. Not just me, but other members on our executive who are wading through the video that I did and wondering what is it that we can do with this video? What are our rights, and how can we do this without breaking the law? We need to know that there are certain boundaries that are around us in terms of what it is that we can actually put on Facebook and YouTube without us finding ourselves confronted by legal, by the legality of what it is, I guess, that we do. So, and you can't, in this world, we need to be rational. You know, part of the issue around child protection that does disturb me is that a lot of people are irrational. I did it, a friend jumped. Just looking at what Party has to say. There's so much about what it is we do that needs to be thought through in a non-emotional way, so that we can look at the potential outcomes and then correct the issues that need to be corrected. But we can't do that when we're totally emotional about another issue, such as vaccinations, such as the virus, such as being at home. There are emotive issues in terms of not being able to access kids. I understand all of that, and we need to find a way to be able to confront that as well. But there's just so much work that has to be done around the child protection type issues themselves that we can't afford, or I can't afford, people on the executive can't afford to have all those other issues swirling around in their head. It is unhelpful. And when people who are predominant people within the child protection system, within the child protection advocacy area, suggesting bizarre, stupid, incompetent, irresponsible responses to things like whether you should pay fines or not, and that you shouldn't, and that you could get locked up and you could lose your kids, and then it's another cross against your name in terms of the department if you have any issues with them. It's just unhelpful stuff. Need to keep clear of all of that, and we need to be able to work so that we can provide the best possible outcomes for kids. So if you wish to become involved, and if you wish to have a discussion around any of these issues that I've raised tonight, feel free. Give me a call, send me an email, contact us at admin@childprotection.party, and we will organise a conversation with you. I'm not afraid of having these conversations. I organised a conversation with a guy who continually had a go at me not long ago, about 2 or 3 weeks ago now, and I was weighing up whether to have a chat to him, whether I needed to give him that space or not. And eventually I said, yeah, sure, come on, we can have a chat, right? But remember, when you have a conversation with us, we are the ones that need to make sure that we have ownership over whatever the video or audio is. We are the ones that have to be responsible for that going out, and therefore we have to be the ones that are conscious of any changes we may wish to make to that video or audio so that it meets a certain legal standard. But for this particular guy, when I eventually contacted him after he ran a go at me because I wouldn't interview him, he backed away. And the reality is, I think that there are so many people out there who are negative about sometimes the work I do, sometimes the work the party does, but when they're confronted by it, they haven't got the guts to come forward. I had put out an invite to a certain individual to come and have a conversation with us about his issues around child protection in terms of being an advocate and all that sort of stuff. And he was quite vocal, gets lots of coverage, even far more coverage than we do. And he wouldn't, because he saw us as a political party. He saw us as politicians. We are a political party. Saw us as politicians. The reality is we're not politicians. No one's a politician until they get into Parliament. So what I find is that if you have an issue and you wish to have a conversation with us, please do. If you have an issue and you want to have an argument with us online or whatever, go for it. But I would always offer you the opportunity to come online and do a video such as this so that we can have that conversation and everybody can see what it is that we're talking about. Because the one thing that the party believes in strongly is transparency and authenticity. So if we're transparent and we're honest, then that is standing by our values and our principles. They're important to us because we as a political party hold to those values, and we believe that they're really important and that we will express them at every possible avenue. So you having a voice is part of that. Now, can I just close by saying on Wednesday night, there is going to be I think this is still running. Yep, on Wednesday night, there is going to be another group session. So if you want to get involved with that group session, we did decide that we're going to do a specific topic each week. We listed what those topics would be, and the next one is on parental alienation. If you wish to be a part of that conversation, we'll be hiving, any new members will be hiving off into another group just for the minute, just do an introductory thing, and then you can come back to the other group when we're talking about parental alienation. So hope that you can join that particular group on Wednesday night. In the meantime, thanks everybody for being with me. My Facebook page has fallen apart, so I don't know what's happening there, and I've lost all my messages. So thanks everybody, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.